Hello everybody and welcome to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. My name is Jason C. and today we have a special episode about my top 7 available and go-to rye whiskeys. It's hard to imagine now, but until about 2012, rye was the least talked about member of American whiskey. But it could be argued that leading up to Prohibition, rye was the most popular and common spirit in the country. Think of rye as bourbon's spicier cousin. To be labeled as rye in the United States, the mash bill must contain at least 51% rye, usually mixed with malted barley, corn, or other grains. Though some distilleries opt for 100% or close to it to maximize that spice factor. Rye whiskey is often called the original American whiskey because it predates bourbon and even predates the United States. Because rye was more of a common grain than corn in colonial Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia, that was what they chose to make whiskey with. George Washington, one of America's biggest distillers in those days, made what today would be called white rye whiskey. Fast forward to the 90s era rise of cocktail culture, a new nostalgic interest in early American drinking, and a boom in craft distilling, everything changed for rye. Through the 2000s, rye became an integral, even expected component of every craft distiller's product offering. Consumers and drinkers alike loved it. Even at the higher price points, it didn't matter. That's when the big name whiskey companies saw an opportunity to up their rye game, and huge brands that had never previously offered a rye style slowly began to introduce older aged ryes with really good success. Even bourbon brands got into the act, adding as much rye as they legally could to the mash bill to spice things up a bit, calling them high rye bourbon or even producing rye and bourbon blends. Now with so many choices out there like this, it can be a bit overwhelming to choose a rye whiskey, and I get asked a lot, which rye whiskeys do I buy and always have on hand for sipping and making cocktails. So here's my top 7 list of go-to and available rye whiskeys and some great cocktails to try with them. First up is number 7 on the list, which is Michter's US1 Single Barrel Straight Rye. Now this is a straight rye whiskey from the Michter's Distillery in Louisville, Kentucky. Every bottle of this rye comes from a single barrel and is really flavorful. This whiskey kind of threads the needle of having a lot of flavor while still having the brightness and sharpness of a rye that it should. On the palate, there's mint, citrus, caramel, got some really nice sweet oak and spice flavors that all good ryes should have. This is a great rye for sipping and for cocktails, especially having a lower proof point and some bold flavors. This is bottled at 84.8 proof and available for about 40 bucks. Try Michter's Single Barrel Rye and a whiskey smash. It's a great gateway cocktail for those looking to dive into rye whiskey. It's light, refreshing, and combines rye with lemon juice, simple syrup, and some mint. Coming in at number 6 is Knob Creek Rye. Released in the middle of 2012, this rye was the first from Knob Creek at the time and joins a line of ryes offered by Jim Beam. The rye is a blend of whiskeys up to about 9 years old, bottled at 100 proof. This is a really delicious rye that has great balance of sweet, spicy, oak, and some citrus notes as well. It's a great introduction into the spicy and more herbal world of rye. Jim Beam doesn't really disclose its mash bill, but it's believed Knob Creek Rye is a barely legal rye, just over 51%. This is available for about 35 to 40 bucks. Try Knob Creek Rye in a drink called a Red Hook. Named for a waterfront neighborhood in Brooklyn, this drink is a combo of 2 classics, the Manhattan and the Brooklyn. This modern classic is a must-try in your cocktail rotation. Coming in at number 5 is Wes Double Rye. Now if you want to try an affordable, spicy rye with a high rye content, then this is the bottle for you. Wes Double Rye is a blend of 2 straight rye whiskeys with ages ranging from about 2 to 7 years old. The ryes are a 95% rye from MGP and an 80% rye distilled at High West themselves in Park City, Utah. The combination of young and older rye whiskeys in here give a great blend of mint, herbal tea, clove, cinnamon spice, caramel that make this an extremely versatile rye. As a bonus, the Double Rye is also non-chill filtered, bottled at 92 proof, and it's available for only about 35 bucks. Try West Double Rye in a Vieux, which has become one of my new favorite cocktails. The spice of the High West goes really well with the sweetness of the cognac and vermouth, which cut through the spice and gives the Vieux its rich and complex flavor. Coming in at number 4 is Old Forester Rye. Released in January 2019 and a newcomer to the rye game, this is Old Forester's first new mash bill release in about 150 years. This rye has a bit more rye than a typical Kentucky rye at 65%. Secondly, instead of making corn the second highest grain, it's malted barley at 20%, leaving only 15% for corn. It comes in at 100 proof, and that different mash bill gives it a really unique flavor profile. The 65% rye gives it an herbal and floral quality mixed with brown sugars, lemon, and a little touch of banana. On the palate, there's a buttered toast quality, baking spices, and a hint of chocolate-covered banana as well. More spice and black pepper round out the finish for a really unique rye that's great neat and gives some unique and delicious flavors in classic rye cocktails. This is bottled at 100 proof, has an amazing price of only 23 bucks, and it's a new and welcome staple in my bar. One of my favorite cocktails I've tried with the Old Forester Rye has been the classic Sazerac. This classic originated as a brandy-based drink in the mid-1800s. Now, when a severe cognac shortage hit in the 1870s, bartenders turned to rye as an alternative base, and the Old Forester Rye is a delicious base and truly unique for this classic cocktail. Coming in at number 3 is Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye from Wild Turkey. Now, this was released not that long ago by Wild Turkey in September of 2015 in response to the growing consumer demand for rye whiskeys. This is bottled at 104 proof, a Kentucky straight rye, it's non-chill filtered, and being a single barrel expression, each bottle has the potential to be distinctly unique. Now, this is definitely a Kentucky rye with heavy vanilla, caramel, herbal tea, mint, and my favorite note on this bottle, some apple cinnamon. Now, even though it's said to have a low rye content of about 52%, the finish has some great rye spice, sweet oak, citrus, caramel, and black pepper. Now, being non-chill filtered, it's amazing neat on the rocks and stands up great in cocktails. This is bottled at 104 proof, like I mentioned, and available for about 60 bucks. Even though I love Russell's Reserve neat, I found that Russell's Reserve Single Barrel works well in a classic Boulevardier. A simple twist on the Negroni. Harry Macalone of Harry's New York bar in Paris invented the Boulevardier in 1927 when he swapped out gin for whiskey. It's sweet, it's spicy, it's delicious, and works really well with the Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye. Coming in at number 2 is Rittenhouse Rye. This is one of my favorite ryes on the planet and a bottle that's always on my bar. This is produced in the tradition of the classic Pennsylvania rye whiskeys, which are believed to have had a spicier and fruitier flavor profile and also a high rye content. But Rittenhouse is actually a low rye, about 51%, which is typical of the modern Kentucky rye, but has delicious sweetness that's really fruity, citrusy and sweet with a great burst of cinnamon, red hot candies, black pepper, spiciness, and some sweet oak as well. Overall, this rye is about as balanced and flexible and versatile as they come. It's delicious neat, holds up on the rocks, great in cocktails. It's just not possible to go wrong with this rye when it comes to flavor and value for the money. Now, if you've never had it, you need to do yourself a favor, pick up a bottle soon. This is bottled and bond from Heaven Hill, 100 proof, and the best part, it's available pretty much everywhere for about 25 bucks. Now, this classic rye calls for a classic cocktail. I love Rittenhouse and a Manhattan. Perhaps the most well-known drink, second only to the martini, this rye-based cocktail is one of the true classics. Like the island whose name it shares, the drink is sweet, strong, and eternally cool. Use some Rittenhouse Rye and brandy cherries to make your next Manhattan. Coming in at number 1 is Pikesville Rye. Heaven Hill's Pikesville Rye is the relaunch of a brand that dates back to 1890s, originally produced in Maryland. Now, in the 1980s, the brand was acquired by Heaven Hill and is now produced in Kentucky. This is aged a minimum of 6 years, bottled at a hearty 110 proof, and is always on my shelf. This is a creamy and viscous rye with a caramel candy and vanilla flavor that is backed with rye spice, chocolate, honey, roasted peanuts, and some cinnamon. The finish has a sweet and minty freshness laced with black pepper and a little bit of chocolate as well. Is this a sweeter rye? Yes, but the flavor, balance, mouthfeel, rye spice, and proof point makes this an amazing buy at only 50 bucks. I love this rye, and you will too. Now, I generally drink Pikesville Rye neat, but the one cocktail I did try this in that I loved was a black walnut old fashioned. Slightly sweet and smooth with notes of caramel, orange, and roasted walnuts, this cocktail is amazing with Pikesville and one of my favorite cocktails during the fall season. So put down your pumpkin spice lattes and drink one of these. So there you have it, everybody, my top 7 go-to and available rye whiskeys and some great cocktails to go along with them. And whether you're just getting into rye whiskey or looking for something different to try neat in a glass, on the rocks, or in a cocktail, there's some great ryes out there that you don't have to break the bank for and that you can find pretty easily. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room for my top 7 go-to and available rye whiskeys. Be sure to leave a comment below if you have tried any of these, if you have any more questions, or if you have any other ryes in mind that you think I missed. Now, if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. Find me on Instagram and find me on Twitter. Always love talking with you guys. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share with. Now go get some rye whiskey, make some cocktails, and I'll see you next time.